If you want to get something big done, something that takes a long time and takes consistent effort, the best way is to make it a habit. With language learning, it's no different. In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 habits that you should be applying to your learning to get to fluency faster and easier. If you want to start learning a language, or you already are learning a language, there are specific techniques and strategies that you need to apply to get from where you are to fluency. But there are higher level adjustments that you can make to your approach, which will improve the effectiveness of everything you're doing to learn. Here, we're going to talk about a few of them. Let's start with a matter of consistency. When you're learning a language, you should be learning a little bit every day. Get yourself into the language at least once a day. Shift out of your native language and point of view, and into your new personality and way of seeing that you're developing. There will be days when you have very little time, and that's okay. Even if it's 15 minutes, get yourself engaged with your language each and every day. This will keep the wheels turning in your target language, even when you're not paying attention to it the rest of the day. And when you make it a habit every day, picking it up on any given day will be much easier because you're making it a habit. Something that you don't have to make a conscious decision to do, but which you just do. Next, immerse yourself entirely. We've all heard of immersive language learning. You travel to somewhere where the language is spoken, or take a course where no other language is allowed, and you live, speak, and breathe that language for some period of time. And this is a super effective tool for learning a language, particularly when it's paired with gaining a conceptual understanding of that language. But that isn't what I mean here. We're talking about immersion in the sense that you want to make yourself part of the language and make the language part of you. I mentioned earlier the personality that you start to develop in the other language. This personality is important because it represents the things that are interesting to you, that you care about, that are meaningful to you as a person who speaks that other language. And so the motivation that immersing yourself in a language in this way gives you is extremely powerful, much more powerful than any sort of motivation you could get from a textbook or from a YouTube video. Make it yours and you'll be instinctively drawn to engage with it. There are different ways you can do this. If there's something that you love, a type of music, a genre of movie or book, a cultural phenomenon, then start building the idea of yourself in that language as it regards that something. For example, though I haven't studied German for a long time and am nowhere near fluent, a while ago I found a German language rapper named Boska. I'm a big fan of hip hop, and I still put his albums on from time to time just because I enjoy them. And if and when I get back into German, that's going to be an important source of inspiration and personality building for me, in German. Next, find ways to immerse yourself, in the usual sense. With this mindset down, of being in the language and having the language in you, there's immersion in the sense that people typically mean. And even if you can't travel somewhere, can't take a week or more out of your schedule to live in that language, you can still find ways to immerse yourself in that language in similar ways. First, put yourself inside the culture. I mentioned books and movies and YouTube, and there are specific places, physical places, where the culture and the language predominate. The idea is to put yourself in places, whether physical or otherwise, where you'll be lost in the culture and the language, where it'll absorb you. This is like the immersion that you get when you travel somewhere, or when you take an immersion course and can only use that language. Treat it the same way. When you sit down to read something in your target language, think only in that language. When you go into a business, say, where that language is spoken, refuse to speak English, only using your target language with employees or other customers if they speak it. Immerse yourself, even if only for short moments. And as I mentioned, some of these short moments will be short conversations with native speakers. They can be about anything, but the goal here is to really dive into the language, putting yourself in situations where you have to speak it, think in it, and understand what's going on only using that language. And the importance of putting the language to use can't be overstated. When you put the language to use, you're developing your practical abilities on top of the conceptual abilities you get when you're taking information in. We've seen this already in a couple of the habits we've discussed, but we can go beyond the obviously active activities and become active users of the language, even in passive moments. For example, we talked about using the language every day. What you can do is as you go around your house doing chores, you can narrate to yourself what you're doing. Describe the situation, describe colors or actions, describe what you're thinking or feeling. Describe how you look. You can do all of these things on a regular basis every day, talking to yourself out loud or in your head, depending on your situation. Although, if you can do it out loud, it's best, because then you're also practicing actually moving your mouth with the new language. And then this way, a passive activity becomes an active one, as far as language learning is concerned. And any activity that you engage in normally to learn your language can be taken from this passive to active state. One way is that when you have immersed yourself in the language, even for just a short time, when you're reading or watching videos, don't just read or watch silently. Repeat the things that you're hearing or reading, or even, though it might feel a little strange at first, have small conversations based on what you're taking in. You might stop reading a passage for a moment, say in a novel, when one character is asked a question of another, and before you read the answer it yourself, either based on what you think the character would say, or how it applies to you. You can stop a video and repeat phrases which are new to you or which you find interesting. You can see more about that in this video. I'll also link it in the description. And even when you're doing things that you might think of as pure silent study, things like using a textbook, you can still make those active activities. Say you're learning verb conjugation. Don't just take in what each verb form is. Instead, say them out loud. Put them in sentences and say them. This will help things to stick. and allow you to practice more than one skill at a time. And then there's a habit that interweaves with and underlies all of these. And that's the habit of mind that will support you across your language learning journey. This is about your mindset, and there are 3 aspects that are going to be helpful. First, focus on what you know and can do now that you didn't know before, as opposed to focusing on all the things you don't yet know. When we look ahead at the mountain, it can sometimes be more difficult to climb. But if we look behind us and see how far we've come, it'll give us the inspiration and the motivation to keep going. Next, stay flexible and keep an open mind about what you're learning. The best way to learn something new is to let go of any assumptions you have about how it's going to be, and let your knowledge grow from the place of recognizing a lack of knowing. Finally, treat mistakes as opportunities, not failures. In learning something as new and complex as language, mistakes will happen. It's inevitable, and these mistakes are valuable. Every time you make a mistake, you have the chance to explicitly correct it, making it stronger in your mind and giving you insight into how the language works versus how you're thinking about it. Mistakes don't define you. They just help push you closer to where you're going. If you're interested in the habit of opening up your perspective, check out the video at the end of this one. So there are 5 habits that are going to change your language learning. If you enjoyed this, like or subscribe, leave a comment below, and we'll see you in the next one.